now going to look at post-colonial criticism. Now, post-colonial criticism aims to undermine the universal claims made by liberal humanism or traditional criticism. So, the kind of perspective or the kind of approach which liberal humanism, right from the period of the ancients, has adopted, and whatever is part of the tradition of criticism, post colonial criticism challenges that and it deconstructs that. In other words, it deconstructs and rejects the Western world's depiction of reality as universal and normative. And when did this emerge? It obviously emerged with the freedom of the countries which were once colonies, and therefore which were once not only politically and economically, but also intellectually and ideologically controlled by the West. So, post colonial criticism is actually an effort, an attempt to reclaim one's past and with pride. This criticism questions the construct of the East. So, the East or the Orient, that is India, Africa, all the countries which were colonies, are the East for the West. So, what is this East exactly? If you look at Western literature and the depiction of the East is always shown as underdeveloped, primitive, orthodox, tribal, unintellectual, uncivilized. So it challenges these notions because it says that these are again ideas that are promoted by writers because they are informed by only one kind of sensibility. Now, exponents of this kind of criticism are Edward Said, Franz Fanon, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, and some of the famous texts are The Wretched of the Earth, Can the Subaltern Speak? That's a very famous essay by Spivak, and Orientalism by Said. So, just to give you an example of what post colonial criticism is all about, let's take, for example, the novel Robinson Crusoe, right? So we all know that Robinson Crusoe was this man who was on a ship, and there's a sea storm and there's a shipwreck, and he is marooned on an island. Somehow his life is saved and he finds himself all alone on an island, and he starts living on the island. Slowly, gradually he starts farming, he makes his own dwelling place, and he familiarizes himself with the fruits and the flowers on the island. And then one day, there are some other people who come to the island, and they are some tribals, and they are chasing a man. And Robinson Crusoe saves this man because he has a gun and he can shoot the tribals, so he scares them off. And this man then becomes his slave. So Robinson Crusoe then teaches him English. And this man, who he calls his man Friday, becomes very devoted to Robinson Crusoe, and he's ready to do whatever his master wants. And gradually he starts speaking English, and Robinson Crusoe finds a companion. Now, read at a symbolic level, this shows exactly the imperialist or the colonial project of the Western man, where the Western man would go to a foreign territory, a foreign land, and he would enslave the native of that land. So the Western man would never try to learn the language, the culture, the ways of the native, but rather he would impart his language, his culture, and his ways to the native person, because he felt that whatever he had was superior to that of the native. Now, if this whole story is told from the perspective of Man Friday, then it becomes a very different story. But we never get to hear that side of the story, and that is what post colonialism attempts to bring to the fore. That is what it attempts to highlight.